Hi, and welcome to the 2021 Economic Depression and Preparation Channel. I'm your host, Tony. Thank you for joining me once again on this Monday edition, July 19th, 2021. And as you know, today I want to get right into it. But before I do, I just want to say, please be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification so you can get the latest video. Some of my subscribers said they weren't able to get the latest video. They're not sending out notifications, I guess, YouTube. So please be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can get the latest video to stay current, so we can all stay current on what's going on in the world. Thank you for your support. Now to today's topic. This is brief topic we're going to be talking about is the rise of the solar powered emissions vehicles, the EV vehicles that the government and everyone is trying to get everybody switched on to, all Americans switched on to by 2030, and the potential dangers that poses, because there's potential risk that poses with the grand solar minimum taking effect, which we're going to talk about that later, and the coronal mass ejections, or the EMP, electromagnetic pulses, that we have now coming off the sun. Now, so far, these pulses have not taken direct aim at planet Earth, and the sun is so many million miles away, 93 million miles away. But if it does shift and the Earth's magnetic field is weakening at the same time, it's possible that we can feel some effects of that, messing up our communications as well as the power grid. As you can see, it's very fragile. And I just want to give our thoughts and prayers out to those in Germany, those friends in Europe that have lost over 100 lives in the massive flooding that took over roads, and the rivers overflowed their banks, and communities were affected and lives were lost. So our prayers are with the families and people in Germany, and as well as the outlying areas that had massive flooding, crazy flooding, and over in Europe. I'm sure you've seen the videos on that. So let's get right into it today. Thank you for joining me. Stock futures are flat after major averages post first negative week in 4. We're watching the futures for Monday opening, and obviously it's flat, and it's the first negative week in 4. They will continue to go down. And now we have the EV, the unintended harm of subsidizing electric vehicles and charging stations. There's the op-ed piece in Market Watch. But basically what it is that, the President Biden and his team has approved building charging stations, and you guys have seen these in grocery stores, in between Walmarts, all over, Targets, everywhere, Kroger's, that they have built these charging stations for people to charge up their EV, the Nissan Leafs or the Chevy Volts or their Teslas or whatever they may have. But the governments could do more to reduce emissions by making gasoline powered cars and trucks more expensive. Well, they don't have to worry about that because inflation is making gasoline powered cars and trucks more expensive. The average price of a new car is over $32,000. A used car is $24,000, the average price nationwide. So inflation is already going to take care of that for that. But the problem with the EV vehicles that most people, that I have, my opinion, is that you can put all the sensors in the road, right? You can put all the sensors in the cars and in the road, and it's supposed to recognize on autopilot people, things, animals, places, signs, and all of that. The problem comes when you have a electromagnetic pulse, or a CME, coronal mass ejection, which we have been having. The last one was on July the 3rd, just before July the 4th, and even though it did not directly impact planet Earth yet, the sun is throwing off solar flares constantly, and geomagnetic storms could happen in the next 5 years, and that could mess up even electronics. As you know, if you have an EMP, electromagnetic pulse situation, that basically renders cars useless. Even electric vehicles that run on these batteries, these lithium batteries or these other kind of cadmium nickel batteries that they run on, it renders it useless. So that throws everybody back into the Industrial Revolution. So even though they say the pollution footprint of electric vehicles is determined by how the electricity that powers them is generated, there's still a lot of e-waste. Did you know that there's 40% to 45% of e-waste, meaning the batteries have to be disposed of when these cars our lifespan is over, okay? Or when these things are done, just like computers and all of the electronic waste. This means that electronic waste is far dangerous because of the chemicals involved. If you get in an accident with one of these Teslas or one of these things and they hit the right spot, the battery, then all of a sudden you got a fire on your hands and you could possibly, be hurt, or somebody else could be hurt. And so they're giving subsidies, $7,500 to buy a car, these electrical cars, which is great. I'm all for that. I'm all for cutting emissions and joining back the Paris Accord and all that they say on TV. Problem is that, like I said, the electrical grid is vulnerable, and even if we get all over the solar, the sun could erupt again with a solar flare, as it did on July the 4th or July the 3rd. I'm sorry here. And cause major communications problems and major solar power problems, okay? And that's something that we have to look out for. That's one black swan event that it doesn't necessarily have to be the grid failing because of the high temperatures and heat that they've seen out west in the Pacific Northwest or in another part of the country. It could be a sun or a solar flare. Let me know what you think about that. An EMP, are you prepared to deal with an EMP? The country of the United States has not experienced one of these head on in the last since past a little bit past the Great Depression. It's been over 110, 120 years since the last EMP, but that was caused by like a comet or a flare that streaked across the sky and caused the Carrington event. And if you didn't have a Faraday cage or something like that, or you didn't have your electronics protected in one of these shielded bags, Faraday bags, or a trash can, a shielded trash can, then it didn't work, including cars and all that. So we're due to see one again. We don't know when, but the sun is getting more active and everything is leading toward that point. Let me know what you think. What would you think about a black swan event like an EMP taking out the grid or a coronal mass ejection, which NASA tracks on their site? Because remember, all of our GPS, all of our internet, broadband, all of that stuff, cell phones come from satellites that are floating up there, and that is affected by EMPs, coronal mass ejections, or solar flares. Okay. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on, probably the end of this month or next month, about the grand solar minimum. A lot of preppers have been talking about that, and that's one of the reasons that's affecting crops. And why crops are having a hard time is because the grand solar minimum means cooler summers, even though it feels hot. The temperature's still below normal. Summer starting later, so the crops can't get going. And mighty cold winters, where you may have winter where it's like 50 below, and then it comes back up to like 0. And this really odd days where it's not like a set, consistent temperature that you normally would expect for the Midwest or from the South or the Southwest or East or Northeast. So let me know what you think about that. Are you into the solar movement? Are you into getting an electric car for the subsidies, the tax breaks, or putting solar panels on your house for the tax breaks and all of that benefits? Or is it more so for prepping, getting prepared for what what's coming, a grid down situation in the Western Hemisphere? And that's something that we haven't seen in quite some time. Thank you very much for joining me this Monday. Have a blessed day. Start out well, start out strong. Let's make it happen. Thank you.